In today's education news, could we be heading for more teacher strikes? Well, the leader of the NEU has said teachers could walk out on strike as soon as autumn term if the government won't up its pay offer and fully fund the increase. Members voted today to back a plan to move to a formal ballot if the final outcome of the STRB process remains unacceptable or if the government does not announce real terms funding increases in the June spending review. So what the DfE have put forward so far is a 2.8% pay rise. That's what they would see is appropriate for 25-26, which is still a real terms cut. However, this is not about teachers being greedy. It's not necessarily the 2.8% pay rise, even though many teachers would say that's still not high enough. I think what is going to motivate the majority of teachers to strike, if those strikes go forward, is the fact that most of that increase is going to be unfunded, meaning schools are going to have to find efficiencies to fund some of it. Because the DfE have since admitted that schools will be able to afford less than half of the 2.8% pay rise proposed for next year, despite the increase in funding announced at last autumn's budget. I think even though no teacher's going to say no to an increase in the 2.8%, ultimately I think what will make more teachers end up voting to strike is the fact that if that 2.8 is unfunded, it's just going to cause nightmares. Schools are already struggling massively to make ends meet. We are already seeing massive cuts before this comes in. To add this without it being funded is just going to make things so much worse. You're going to see more teachers leaving the profession because our jobs are just going to get harder because we're expected to do more with less. It's also the knock-on effect this unfunded pay rise is going to have on support staff and TAs, where we're already seeing so many trusts and schools having to cut the amount of support staff, which then ultimately has another knock-on effect to the students and makes teachers' jobs even harder. To have this, it's just going to be an absolute nightmare. And that is something I would be willing to strike over. No doubts there will be comments from people on this video, oh, lazy teachers striking again when they get all those holidays. Look, teachers don't want to strike. The union themselves want to avoid strike action as much as possible. It's only in extreme circumstances where we need to take a stand do we do it. And when teachers do strike, they lose that pay for the day. You've got to remember that. And in the current circumstances, cost of living, that is a real hard challenge for so many teachers to take. So it's only in those extreme circumstances. And it's not because teachers are greedy and want more money. What teachers want is the best possible education system for the children. Because again, if that pay increase is unfunded, it's the children that are going to lose out. There won't be as much support. There won't be as many opportunities. It's going to affect their education. And that is something that teachers want to take a stand against. So 84% of voting NEU members said they would be willing to take action to secure an increased pay award. However, the turnout in that ballot was only 47.2%, which in a formal ballot would fall below the 50% threshold. But that may well change if you do go to a formal ballot. That's still over 47%. I think it's over 100,000 teachers. We are just going to have to wait and see what happens. I'm hoping that the government will be able to fund it. I think if a 2.8% pay rise is fully funded, I don't think teachers would vote to strike. If it remains unfunded, I don't know. If it's unfunded, I would probably vote to strike in those circumstances because I just don't know how schools can survive if they're just expected to do more with less. And for the government to come in and make promises about how they're going to improve things, you've got to invest. You've got to put the money in to make sure that schools can thrive and not just about survive.